What's up, guys? Welcome to Sky's Grubs. It's the pilot episode, probably the first and only ever one. Everyone knows I don't really love being on camera here, but it was recently a pretty special birthday, and she always tells me I'd be good at making these type of videos, so I thought, hey, it's a good reason to make one. So, Rach, I love you. Hopefully this actually helps you make a successful loaf. Let's do it.
All right, starting with the ingredients, which I've included the amounts below. We've got honey, yeast, and warm water at 110 degrees. Then we got salt, olive oil, and seasonings of your choice. Lastly, of course, we have some flour here, a mix of bread and AP. Starting to make the dough, we first want to mix our honey with our warm water and yeast. We're going to stir this up and let it sit for a few minutes to allow the yeast to bloom. However, if you are on a time crunch, this step isn't too necessary. After a few minutes, you can see our yeast has woken up a little bit. Don't worry if yours doesn't get too bubbly. It's going to be fermenting in the fridge for so long that it's not too necessary. So then I'm going to mix my flour, salt, and my seasonings. Here I'm doing, again, the garlic powder and some Italian herb mix and some rosemary. I'm going to mix that into the bowl with my water and yeast mixture and just kind of stir that until it becomes this shaggy mess of a dough. It doesn't really need to be too smooth. You see here, I'm actually going to add a little bit of extra water because you want it to be pretty wet. It's a pretty heavy hydration dough. But this first mix is really just to get everything incorporated, and then we're going to let it sit in the fridge for a while. After it's come together a bit, I do add some olive oil just to help grease everything up and add a little bit more of that luxurious texture to the dough. But then I'm just going to clean down the bowl, and we're going to cover it up and let it sit overnight in the fridge. You can see it has a nice healthy shake to it there. So we'll see you in 24 hours. All right, so on to folding the dough. So welcome back to day 2. We're going to take off the top here, and using wet hands, water is really the key. We're going to knock down the sides of the dough and then let its natural gravity smooth itself out into a nice uniform ball. Really what I'm doing here is letting the dough naturally fall down and then tucking those edges underneath itself so it becomes this nice spherical shape. Then we can just cover it up and toss it back into the fridge. All right, so back 12 hours later here for fold 2. We're going to do the same exact process. Wet your hands, pick up the dough, tuck those edges underneath, and try and maintain that nice smooth exterior. After that, you can toss it back in the bowl and cover it up for another 12 hours. All right, we're back for fold number 3, and you guessed it, same exact process. Wet hands, you can see the dough is much smoother and puffier now, so definitely the fermenting is working. But tuck those edges underneath, toss it back in the bowl for one final time, and then 12 hours later, we can finally get ready to bake it. All right, we're back on day 3 of the overall process for our 4th fold, and today's the day we've all been waiting for. It's time to finally bake our dough. So we're going to oil up our baking sheet and grab out any stuffing that you want for your focaccia. I'm using a roasted or confit garlic that I made a while back. But then we're going to take our dough out of the fridge and actually flip it upside down so that nice smooth surface is on the bottom. Then you're going to stuff your dough with your filling of choice. Again, I'm using some roasted garlic here. And then we're going to do what's called a bookend fold, where you take your bottom third of your dough and then the top third of your dough and fold them on top of each other before flipping the entire thing back upside down so that smooth surface is up top. Then you're going to cover it up and let it rest so it fully doubles, or for about 4 to 6 hours in my case. All right, so time to actually bake the dough. After about 4 hours at room temp, it's doubled in size, and we're going to wet our hands with olive oil this time and dimple the dough like you see all over Instagram. Then we're going to add the olive oil to those dimples and top it with some flaky salt before throwing it in the oven for about half an hour to 35 minutes. You want it to become really crispy. Then, boom, we got a beautiful loaf of focaccia. So we can take it out of the pan, put it on some wire racks to avoid the bottom from steaming and losing that crispy, crunchy exterior. And then you can enjoy it in a variety of ways. I know Rach, you'll probably just eat it straight out of the bag. There you can hear how crispy it was. All right, cheers.